In 1947, the United Nations voted to partition the land from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean into a Jewish state and an Arab state.
There are Muslims who believe that the Jewish people have no historic connection with the Temple Mount or with Jerusalem. But in the Quran itself you will find references linking the Jewish people to Jerusalem more than 2,000 years ago. Many of these references refer to the Jews living as a people in their own land.
The Jews accepted the UN decision. The Arabs rejected it outright.
There is specific mention in the Quran of the two separate occasions when the Jews were driven out from their temple by invading armies. Possibly it was these Quranic statements which in 1925 influenced the Supreme Muslim Council in Jerusalem to publish for the English-speaking world their views on the Temple Mount and its surrounding area. These views were printed in the booklet A Brief Guide to the Al-Haram al-Sharif, the Temple Mount. This Muslim booklet states that the site is one of the oldest in the world and that its sanctity dates from the earliest times. It then goes on to declare that the Mount's identity as the site of Solomon's temple is beyond dispute.
But within days of the rejection of the UN decision in 1947, the Arabs increased their violent campaign of terror. 6 months later, in accordance with a UN resolution, David Ben-Gurion declared the rebirth of the Jewish state on the 14th of May, 1948. It was the third time in history there was a Jewish state in the Middle East. The declaration was made in Tel Aviv, not Jerusalem. Jerusalem was under heavy attack. On the following day, 5 Arab armies from Jordan, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon and Iraq invaded Israel.
Ever since King David established Jerusalem as the capital of Israel some 3,000 years ago, it is to Jerusalem and the Temple Mount that Jews turn in prayer. In the Quran, the name Jerusalem does not appear, nor to this day has Jerusalem been mentioned in any of the 5 daily prayer services in the Muslim Book of Prayer. In the Hebrew Bible, Jerusalem appears 657 times. In Judaism's 3 daily prayer services, Jerusalem and Zion are repeated with reverence again and again. Muslims do not face Jerusalem in prayer. They pray to the Kaaba in Mecca, in Saudi Arabia.
With ammunition running low, the besieged defenders around the Temple Mount were forced to surrender to the British-led Arab Legion from Jordan. Jews were expelled, many taken as prisoners to Amman. They made no effort to declare the part of Jerusalem they occupied the capital of the Palestinian Arabs. Amman remained their capital. And for the first time for hundreds of years, Jews were not allowed to approach the Temple Mount or the Western Wall. Some Christian rulers, before Muslims first conquered the city, had also banned Jews from Jerusalem.
Right up to the late 1970s, however, it was always thought that the Church of St. Mary stood on the Temple Mount, built on the ruins of the Second Jewish Temple. Modern archaeology is now sure that the church was built nearby. Much of the stonework of this church was used in the building of the original Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Soon followed the building of the Dome of the Rock. This was nearly 700 years after the Romans destroyed the temple in the year 70. And it was not until the Six-Day War in June 1967 that Jews returned in force to the Temple Mount. On recapturing the Holy City, Israeli soldiers were ordered not to attack the Dome of the Rock or the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This order was given even though since 1948 the Jordanians had destroyed 58 mostly small synagogues in the Jewish quarter. Even the famous historic Kharva synagogue built in 1705 was burnt to the ground. The Six-Day War ended the Jordanian occupation of Jerusalem. For the first time in hundreds of years, all could pray freely in the reunited capital of the city of Israel. But peace has always remained beyond reach. But there are those who reach out for understanding between Muslim, Christian and Jew, like Sheikh Professor Abdul Hadi Palazzi, Imam for the Italian Muslim community in Rome.
Both the Bible and the Quran state quite clearly that the sovereignty of the land of Israel does not depend on conquest and colonization, as this right flows from the will of Almighty God. But just as no one denies Muslims complete sovereignty over Mecca, there is no reason for Muslims to deny the state of Israel, which is a Jewish state, complete sovereignty over Jerusalem, with Israel continuing to respect the rights of other religions in the Holy City.
Today, Jerusalem is the capital of the State of Israel. The Temple Mount is the very heart of the city of Jerusalem.